Do you feel like you have everything looking successful on the outside, but inside there's this constant pressure and feeling overwhelmed? If so, you're not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Vartanian, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I help high achievers find their worth outside of achievements. Today, I'll be diving into four of the most commonly asked or searched questions about high functioning anxiety. So let's dive right in. Okay, so our first one today: what is high functioning anxiety? So it makes sense that that would be our first one to dive into. So it might help to start with what is anxiety to begin with before differentiating it from high functioning anxiety. Right? So anxiety, as we know it, is usually kind of our nervous system that's there to kind of prepare us in times of what feels like threat or stressful situation. It kind of helps us stay alert and kind of be on our toes, more focused on things around us to keep ourselves safe, right? So that's the purpose and reason for our nervous system experiencing anxiety. Now, when it comes to high functioning anxiety, sometimes we expect that anxiety might get in the way of our functioning. But when we're in high pressure jobs and roles and responsibilities, maybe from early on in life, we might have gotten really good at, actually, and it's like become a strength, that we function really well under stress. Like some people, like the more pressure and stress and expectations there are, even though they're highly anxious, because again, that's your body is adapted to feeling nervous and alert all the time, you have better focus and better attention, and you're still able to get your tasks and jobs done instead of it kind of maybe affecting or getting in the way, as one might expect sometimes with anxiety. But that's not always the case. Again, if you had this past experience where you got really good at high functioning while under stress and a lot of anxiety, this might have become a strength of yours, and now your nervous system, your body's kind of accustomed to constantly functioning at this high levels of stress and anxiety. So that being said, as you can imagine, like again, something that you got so good at, like now you probably are in a job or career where that you are supposed to thrive on it, or it's like expected for you to thrive on that. But as you might notice, depending on what stage you're in right now watching this video in life or in career, it's at the end of the day, it's still stress. It's still like your nervous system constantly on alert and activated, right? So eventually, like what we know is that it could turn into burnout, like fatigue, chronic fatigue, just being tired, right? At some point, we might hit this line where it becomes less helpful. Like it might have helped to stay focused, but now it's not as helpful anymore, and we're just tired. And if that's the case, you're not alone. And resources like mental health therapy can help you figure out when to turn off that high functioning aspect of yourself, right? Do you have to be on all the time? And understand you want to be driven and ambitious. We're not saying we're going to take that away or that you have to take that away by any means, but we're learning how to approach things like our responsibilities with more of a balance versus being on like overdrive all the time, right? So that's the key. And I hope that makes sense. Okay, so next question. Why do successful people struggle with anxiety? Yeah, so similar to the question above, right? This has become a strength of yours. Again, at some point in your life, there were certain expectations that and standards that probably had to be met. You got really good at performing and meeting those standards and expectations, and now your nervous system is on this kind of like overdrive and over functioning or hyper functioning. But eventually, like at the end of the day, it is still coming from a place of stress and anxiety, and your nervous system might feel like, oh, this is a lot and I need to slow down and reset. But we didn't get enough practice or skills to know how to slow down and reset and calm down and be able to manage, right, the highs and lows that might be coming up. So why do successful people struggle with anxiety? Again, it's just the expectations that you're probably used to from a very young age, I would imagine. Like maybe the teachers or coaches, like if you were in like extracurricular activities, things, expectations at home, maybe you have to get done at a certain time, like very high disciplinary households. If you're in those extracurricular activities where coaches were expecting you to, or teachers were expecting you to perform a certain way, and you were rewarded to perform a certain way, and you're like met all these standards or maybe even exceeded them, that's how you got used to becoming successful while under pressure or with anxiety. So I hope that kind of provides clarity on how this ends up happening, or pattern that might happen in our lives. Okay, so our next question. Why do I look calm but feel overwhelmed? Ooh, I really like this question a lot, actually. But this is going to be a really common one with our high achievers and those over-functioning individuals, right? Again, there was a time in our life where we were expected to perform a lot and like high performance based, but because of the surroundings, settings, and circumstances, environments that you were in, you probably got really good at showing up a certain way, right? So if I could think of an example, maybe you had to be in soccer practice or something, or soccer games. It's expected for you to pay attention, like do a bunch of different activities, right? Like focus on this, focus on that, without getting overwhelmed. Like you have to have some sort of calm, right? Composure, right? If you're not composed, or you get that yellow flag, the red flag, right? Or if you're just, in a classroom, like a regular teacher classroom, you could get benched, you get warnings, you get some sort of punishment. Or similar at home, in your home environment, maybe there was like expectations that you're not supposed to express your emotions or your dissatisfaction, your anger, your irritability or unhappiness with something, right? So a lot of household rules are you don't complain, or there's that common expression like cry and I'll give you something to cry about, right? So with those kind of messages growing up from these different settings that we're in, we might have learned that it's bad, right? It's like a negative thing to be showing our emotions or when we're overwhelmed. So on the outside, we learned to stay composed and look calm, while internally we're dealing with a whole other layers of emotions that were told for different reasons that maybe it's not a safe space to do so. So that answers that question of why do I look calm but feel overwhelmed internally? So we got rewarded for being calm and composed, and maybe punished if we weren't that way. So again, we got good at being calm on the outside while still having a lot of different emotions and feeling overwhelmed in the inside. Okay, so our next question. Why do I overachieve to feel safe? Ooh, I somehow I thought I liked the question above, but somehow I'm liking this one even more. This is another, I would say, really common one amongst the overachievers, those high functioning, when it comes to high functioning anxiety. The anxiety is saying like there's some sort of threat and stress that I need to be alert on in order to feel safe, right? So if I overachieve, if I keep pushing myself to do more, that means I'm doing better, and then I'll finally be enough, right? So at the root of it, when there's overachievement or this tendency to keep pushing for the next goal and reaching the next goal, is because there's this worry or this thought or concern that, hey, what I'm doing is not enough, and only when I do enough will I be loved, secure, safe, and accepted. So a lot of the tendency to overachieve because it feels safe is coming from this thought process of I need to do more, I need to achieve more in order to be safe, because if I don't, then I'm not good enough, and if I'm not good enough, then I'm not loved, and if I'm not loved, then it's hard to feel safe and secure, right? So usually that's coming from those thought processes. If that's what you're feeling, know that you're not alone, and that early messages that we're getting, it's kind of based on like those reward systems and punishment systems that our brain is kind of dividing into, like, if I do this, I'm good, if I don't do this, I'm bad. So we're kind of used to that habitual way of thinking, and it doesn't have to stay that way. So resources like mental health therapy will help us understand, hey, where is this tendency? Like what's an early experience or early time you remember feeling this experience of having to overachieve and do more and be more, right? Where is it coming from? And what can we think and feel differently about ourselves and our situation instead? Like, how do we get from a place of feeling like I am not enough to I am enough, and feel secure in that? So once we get to that place of I am enough as I am, or who I am is enough, then that need to constantly overachieve won't be there. It's not needed to rely on that anymore. So those are all our questions for today. If there's anything else I can answer, drop them in the comments below and I can make another video like this. Thank you for watching. Take care.